Hey, it's Azrielle Lawless here, and once again, you find yourself in Vella, a place where we talk about all things to do with the new and exciting reading platform from Amazon called Kindle Vella. It's available to anyone in the U.S. right now. I'm sorry, this is 5/22. I think they plan to expand, but right now it's just the U.S. But it's available to anyone with an Amazon membership. And all you do is go to any browser and type in Kindle Vella, and you'll be taken to a place where you can read stories kind of like you watch television, one episode at a time. And there are tens of thousands of stories, more every day. And out here on Vella, we talk to the authors, we read the stories, or read, little snippets of the stories, and just basically want to hear what you think about it. Go out and give the platform a try. There's always a link in the comments. So without further ado, let us see what today's serial flow is. It is called Dark Wings Eternal. It is by author Kroff, and it is in process. There are 12 episodes currently. The tags on this are vampires, demons, paranormal romance, fantasy romance, and angels. Here's the synopsis for you. The kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of blood each have claim to part of this world. Artem is the long-awaited ruler of the underworld, tasked with dominating the human race once and for all. Amira is a vampire heiress to a great dynasty within the kingdom of blood. Her job is to protect humans and vampires alike. When their worlds collide, nothing is as it seems. Secrets lead to hidden truths and forbidden love. What Amira doesn't know is she's playing right into the devil's hands. Ooh, doesn't that sound good? Okay. So here's episode 1, Duty Calls. Amira. The dreamy dance of nightfall beckoned me deeper into the woods. The starlight shimmered against his pale skin as he drew me into him. I held my breath, hoping for a glimpse of this stranger's face, but it didn't come. It never did. The shadows fell, and I was left alone. I blinked my eyes open and slid my legs off the bench overlooking Green Lake. The visions were more frequent, more vivid, and told me absolutely nothing. The man remained a mystery. My hands gripped the ice-cold metal as I prepared myself for tonight's job. Nothing was too unusual about the task. The guy was a sleaze and traded in young blood. He needed to be off the streets. You ready? Jennifer asked, noticing I'd just sat up. Or did your day job do you in? She teased, knowing my desk job wasn't exactly taxing. Sirens wailed in the distance, which wasn't at all unusual for the streets of Seattle, but tonight the sound put me on edge. I nodded and grinned. I'm always ready. She groaned and shook her head. You sound exactly like your father, but you look like your mother. I don't know if I'll ever get used to that combo. I rolled my eyes and laughed. Jealous? Jennifer tucked in a few strands of stray blonde hair under her motorcycle helmet and snorted. I wouldn't be in your shoes no matter what kingdom was promised to me. I laughed and shook my head. It's not that bad. I get to socialize with ordinary people during the day, and come night, you're a lethal weapon, Jennifer winked at me. Not only was she my best friend, but she was also one of the best vampire hunters our hive had. My father, Axis Valen, had turned her over 100 years ago because of her talents, but she didn't look a day over 30. My father had incredible foresight. The talent propelled him to greatness. It was why he was the hive's leader. These were all the things that had been pounded into me since the day I was born into this world and made in his image not so long ago. However, much had changed since I'd been turned, and I wasn't sure how I felt about any of it any longer. As my mom liked to remind me, it wasn't my job to feel anything. Even as the streets of Seattle became laced with crime, I knew my place. I lived a vampire's life in a human's world. Being the daughter of Axis Valen reminded me of what I'd become and what was expected of me. Tonight, that included finding our latest mark, a vampire who'd stopped following my father's rules. We were expected to remain civilized, abide by a simple code, and for some reason that was difficult for some of my kind. And by tomorrow morning, I'd be at my desk pounding away on a keyboard as if I weren't up the entire night before. Chester's partying on the corner of 5th and Jackson. It should be easy. She flashed a wicked grin. Isn't that your old stomping ground? I snorted and raised my hand. Don't even get me started. It was true. Before I was turned, I snuck into the club on Jackson more times than I'd care to admit. A small part of me missed that carefree life where the only expectations were those I put on myself. I enjoyed a night of dancing, flirting, and whatever else might have come of the evening, and then I became a vampire. I glanced across Green Lake and let out a sigh. Let's make this quick. I've got an early meeting and I can't be late. Wow, taking your corporate gig pretty seriously. Well, tomorrow I have a meeting with the CEO, I informed her. Moving on up, huh? She motioned for me to follow her. I suppose. I think it's just a formality, but I'm not looking forward to it. I grimaced. Artem has quite the reputation. She stopped dead in her tracks and looked at me. Artem Fedorov. Yeah, why? Jennifer's lip curled slightly and we began walking again. He's the sexiest man alive, no joke. Have you seen him? I shrugged. Can't say that I have, not in person anyway. Just a few fuzzy video chats that I hardly pay attention to since it's all above me. I was sent by my dad for a purpose. And how's that going? Being a mole isn't exactly my greatest accomplishment in life, but it's going. Like I said, I get to live like a normal person during the day. Jennifer pressed her lips into a thin line. You miss it that much, being human? I stayed quiet for a few moments before answering. Sometimes. I miss the touch, the innocence, the emotions. Jennifer scowled. We have emotions. Right. But there's no in between. We're either raging or euphoric. I miss the stuff in the middle. She nodded, stopped in front of her motorcycle, and handed me a black helmet. Well, just wait till you see that man. She nearly cackled. And remind me, what's the director of analytics doing meeting the CEO? I laughed and shook my head. I have asked myself that many times, but my team prepared a report he requested, so it's my duty to present it. Besides, he didn't even bother returning my email, so I doubt it's that important. And perchance, do you know what's in that report? I will by 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's what matters. I tapped my temple. Let's not forget my photographic memory. Jennifer laughed. To be young again. I slid the helmet on and flipped the visor down as she straddled her bike and turned on the engine. I slid my leg over the bike and tapped her shoulder. Let's do it. The engine growled beneath us as Jennifer released the throttle and my thighs tightened around her, shooting us toward the ticket to getting home. When the club came into sight, my stomach knotted. The moment I'd been turned, I'd ceased coming to this playground of dancing, drinking, and forgetting myself. I drew a breath as she pulled up next to the sidewalk and turned off the bike. A long line extended around the block of hopefuls desperately wanting to get inside. The moment Jennifer slid off her helmet and unzipped her leathers, the bouncer's tongue needed to be curled back into his mouth. I tugged off my helmet and took off my jacket, rolling it up for Jennifer to put away. Looking good, Jennifer remarked as I smoothed my dark hair and ran my hands along the leather pants and red camisole I'd chosen for the night. I turned to see the crowd glaring at us as we walked up to the bouncer, who opened the rope and let us right in. See, there are perks to having fangs, she laughed, and I brought my mouth to her ear. But he didn't see them. She shrugged as we walked inside to the darkened room with the hot pink and turquoise lights dancing across the ceiling. The thumping of the music rumbled under my feet as I scanned the dance floor for Chester. My guess is he's at the bar, being the predator he is, Jennifer yelled through the beats of the music. As we made our way through the crowd of mostly drunk mortals, my heart tugged for what they had. My free time was spent discussing business with my father, training my peers, and working in the day to keep tabs on something that didn't seem that important. Not to mention these night excursions a few times a month. A man grabbed me, but I dodged his advances and slapped his hand away. He scowled and reached for me again, but I caught his hand and crushed his fingers, and he fell to his knees. No means no. I turned around, scanning the bar for our vampire, when I spotted a man dressed in a black hoodie. His posture was hunched with slumped shoulders and a skittish vibe. I tapped Jennifer's shoulder. That him? Her eyes followed my gaze, and she grinned. No, that's his buddy. He's 2 stools down, the short one. And that is why you are the hunter, I teased. As I brought my gaze to our mark, he straightened, his eyes connected with mine, and he shot from his stool. Damn, I hated to cause a scene. Jennifer's hunter senses took over. She lunged toward Chester, who tripped through the sea of dancers and toppled to the floor. I jumped on top of him as a few bystanders circled around us and pointed. Jennifer took a few steps back and texted the rest of our team to meet us in the back. I bent down and whispered in Chester's ear, "Axis requests your presence." "Just kill me now," he growled as I pulled him to his feet. "I would if I could, but I have my orders." I dug my nails into his flesh as the circle dissipated into the crowd of dancers, and we made our way to the back hallway leading to the van waiting outside. Jade and Chester hopped out and grabbed Chester from me. Jade and Chance hopped out and grabbed Chester from me. "I'm glad we got this assignment," Jade said, running her red nail along his cheek. "Vampires like this one need to pay for their sins." I nodded slowly, knowing that Jade knew that pain more than any of us. Her sister had been used for her innocent blood long before we'd started hunting these creeps. "You've got it from here?" Jennifer asked. Chance gave a quick nod as he climbed into the van's back and injected Chester with Jade, while Jade waved and walked over to the driver's side. "You want to ride?" Chester asked. I shook my head and smiled. "Jennifer will drop me off. Thanks, though." His eyes connected with mine. "Sure thing." As he slid the door shut and Jade drove away, Jennifer shook her head. "He's got it bad for you." I scowled and looked at her. "Huh? What makes you say that?" "Seriously, you can't tell?" I shook my head. "You're a lost cause." She smiled as we walked around the building toward her bike, which is probably good, since you'll be meeting a man who can cast his spell on anyone. Okay, so that was part of episode 1 of Dark Wings Eternal, an exciting paranormal romance by author Kroff on Kindle Vella, available now. First 3 episodes free. Thanks for listening. This is Azrielle Lawless. Take care.